Random, mind-blowing historic facts and trivia that are almost too weird to be true. Before the 19th century, dentures were made from dead soldiers' teeth. After the Battle of Waterloo, dentists ran to the battlefield to seek out teeth from the thousands of dead soldiers. They then took their bounty to their dental practices and crafted them into dentures for the toothless elite. Roman Emperor Gaius, also known as Caligula, made one of his favorite horses a senator. The emperor loved his horse, named Incitatus, so much that he gave him a marble stall, an ivory manger, a jeweled collar, and even a house. Caligula also allegedly planned to make his trusty steed consul before his assassination. Sure, we've all heard of the Boston Tea Party, but what about the Boston molasses disaster? On January 15, 1919, a 90-foot-wide cast-iron tank filled to the brim with sticky molasses exploded and spilled 2.5 million gallons of crude molasses into the streets of Boston. The brown stuff ran through the streets like a tsunami, with 15-foot-high waves reaching speeds of 35 miles per hour. The molasses demolished everything in its path, toppling buildings, drowning horses, and eventually killing 21 and injuring 150. When Louis XVI and Marie Antoinette were beheaded, it is said that people dipped handkerchiefs in their blood to keep as souvenirs. In 2011, a group of scientists confirmed that a blood-stained handkerchief dated approximately 1793 was soaked in the blood of Louis XVI. In 1644, English statesman Oliver Cromwell banned the eating of pie. He declared it a pagan form of pleasure. For 16 years, pie eating and making went underground until the Restoration leaders lifted the ban on pie in 1660. John Adams and Thomas Jefferson, founding fathers and the second and third presidents of the United States, respectively, died within hours of each other on July 4, 1826, the 50th anniversary of the adoption of the Declaration of Independence. Adams' last words were, "Jefferson lives," unaware that his old friend had died earlier that day. Joan of Arc convinced Charles VII she could lead his armies with no experience. She routed the English, survived a 60-foot escape leap from a tower uninjured, was falsely accused of heresy, and burned at the stake, all between the ages of 17 and 19. She was guided by voices only she could hear. The sound made by the Krakatoa volcanic eruption in 1883 was so loud it ruptured the eardrums of people 40 miles away, traveled around the world 4 times, and was clearly heard 3,000 miles away. That's like standing in New York and hearing a sound from San Francisco. The South African Railway once employed a baboon. In his 8 years of service, he never made a single mistake. The Tale of Two Lovers, an erotic novel, was one of the best-selling books of the 15th century. It was written by Pope Pius II before he assumed the papacy. It's believed that roughly 97% of history has been lost over time. Written accounts of history only started roughly 6,000 years ago. Modern humans first appeared around 200,000 years ago. Before Julius Caesar invaded Britain, many Romans didn't believe it existed. Julius Caesar was the first ever Roman to invade Britain. He did it twice in the years 55 and 54 BC. Some Romans believed Britain to be just the foot of another huge northern continent. Others thought it was a place full of unbelievable riches, whilst most thought it just didn't exist. The Soviet Union tried to snuff out the memory of Genghis Khan. During the Soviet-era rule of the late 20th century, simply mentioning the great Mongolian conqueror's name was a crime against the USSR. The Soviets removed his story from school textbooks and outlawed pilgrimages to his birthplace of Khenti. The guillotine was invented to create equality in execution. Until its widespread use, the regular methods of execution in France were rather savage. Punishment like being drawn and quartered was common. The idea to use the guillotine as the main method of execution was part of the movement for equality in France that spurred on the revolution. Adolf Hitler helped design the Volkswagen Beetle. Between Hitler and Ferdinand Porsche, the iconic bug-like car was designed as part of a Hitler-revived German initiative to create an affordable and practical car that everyone could own. The ancient Egyptians used slabs of stone as pillows. In ancient Egypt, the head was considered to be the seat of spiritual life and had to be cared for. Therefore, when getting into bed, the Egyptians would place their heads on a stone with a curve in it. The first known artworks date back roughly 100,000 years ago. It is believed to have begun with the Homo sapiens during the Upper Paleolithic era. The oldest known artworks were found in a cave in what is now France. During World War II, Americans called hamburgers Liberty Steaks. This was because hamburger sounded a little too German. Also, during World War II, sauerkraut was redubbed Liberty Cabbage. Adolf Hitler's nephew fought against the Nazis in World War II. During the Second World War, William Patrick Hitler, later William Patrick Stewart Houston, was drafted into the United States Navy, where he served as a hospital corpsman throughout the war until 1947. He was wounded in action and was awarded the Purple Heart, and went on to gain American citizenship. The fastest surgeon ever ended up causing a 300% mortality rate. Shocking, right? Surgeon Robert Liston was considered the fastest knife in the West. He was a pioneer in speed surgery. When performing a battlefield amputation in front of a group of spectators, Liston cut through his patient's leg so quickly that he accidentally cut the fingers off the person who was helping him. One man who witnessed the surgery collapsed and died of a heart attack. Then Liston's patient and his assistant died of blood poisoning from their joint amputation, making him the only surgeon in history to have a 300% mortality rate. There were dance marathons during the Great Depression. These human endurance contests served as a way of giving financially unstable married couples a roof over their head and food to eat for a few days. The dance partners would take turns sleeping while the other propped them up and continued dancing with them. 1 in 200 men are direct descendants of Genghis Khan. The Mongolian emperor was known for siring at least 11 children. Scientists conducted a study in 2003 that showed that 1 in 200 men share a Y chromosome with the Conqueror. In the Victorian era, men with mustaches used special cups. Pragmatically called mustache cups, these specially made mugs had guards on them which prevented a man's mustache from dipping into their warm cup of tea. 46 BC was 445 days long and is the longest year in human history. Nicknamed the Year of Confusion, this year had 2 extra leap months inserted by Julius Caesar. This was in order to make his newly formed Julian calendar match up with the seasonal year. Back in colonial America, slaves could win their freedom through lawsuits. Although there was a low chance of succeeding, winning in court meant that the slave was now a citizen. Since slaves often didn't have last names and needed a last name to be a citizen, they were often just given the last name of freeman. The Leaning Tower of Pisa was never straight. Known for its 4-degree lean, this Italian bell tower was constructed in the 12th century. When construction on the second story started, the tower started to lean due to the unstable ground it was built on. Iceland has the world's oldest parliament in history. Called the Althing, it was established in 930 and has stayed as the acting parliament of Iceland since then. Alexander the Great named over 70 cities after himself. Alexander the Great conquered over 2 million square miles of the Earth's surface, all by the time he was 30, so naming cities after himself was much deserved. Cleopatra was the first member of her dynasty to speak ancient Egyptian. She was also able to speak 8 other languages, including Ancient Greek, Ancient Iranian, Ancient Parthian, Syriac, Ethiopian, Troglodytes, Hebrew, and Arabic. America's National School Lunch Program of 1946 was due to World War II. This is due to the fact that the government realized by giving the children free meals, they would have a healthier draft pool if they ever needed it again. Paul Tibbets, pilot of the Enola Gay, the plane that dropped the first nuclear bomb on Hiroshima, didn't have a funeral or headstone. When he was close to death, Tibbets decided he didn't want a funeral or a headstone as he worried it would become a place for protesting nuclear armament. Instead, he was cremated, and his ashes were scattered over the English Channel. In medieval England, the word ask was pronounced axe. This pronunciation of the word was even featured in the first English translation of the Bible, "Ask and it shall be given." In 1710, Native American leaders traveled to Britain to visit Queen Anne. The 4 Mohawk kings from one of the Iroquois Confederacy's 5 nations and the Algonquian peoples were treated with high honor as diplomats. Transported through the streets of London in royal carriages, they were personally met by the Queen herself at the court of St. James Palace. If you enjoyed this video, please like, share, and subscribe to the channel. See you in the next video.